Zezito. I really liked the part where the protagonists
finally confronted their fears.
Me too, it was so empowering. Welcome to the South African journey, restoring the soul of South Africa.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the South African Journey audiobook series. We're glad to have you with us. We hope this work.
The picture that you see here define the story that we are carrying. How that most villages in Venda are turning from being villages to being towns, much like much of London was rural and now is urban. And the whole of Venda that was largely rural is increasingly becoming urban. That is one aspect of rural development that we are seeing. The other side of rural development is that the villages continue the way they are with their as cultural carriers, as historic legacies of our ancestors, our heritage, where we come from. And yet, the dynamism of them is such that we are not talking about poverty anymore. We are not talking about underdevelopment. No, we're talking about people who cherish to live in such environment, even though they are wealthy, they have means for living, means for upkeep, but they choose to leave the towns and the cities and the suburbs and the townships and come and settle in the villages. We see that it's happening everywhere. If you drive across Limpopo, I was also in Eastern Cape, also in Northern Cape, also in KwaZulu-Natal. We see those pictures of people that are building mansions in the villages. They depart from the sterility of suburbs, the gloominess of suburbs, and they go back and find connection with nature and with God and with life in the villages, in the rural areas. Right now, when you talk about Sandton, people are being killed in Sandton. Sandton is not a vibe. Sandton is a place of criminality, high-level criminality. Killers like Ket Madlala live in Sandton. People who kill somebody live in Sandton. All criminals now, entrepreneurs and people who kill whistleblowers and amass a lot of money, they live in Sandton. Sandton is a crime spot. It's not like Zari. You are breathing the breath of killers and criminals when you are there. There's nothing to cherish about that. I'm living in Sandton, I'm living in the northern suburbs. That is just a myth. And that myth has bubbled and has been the balloon has been pierced of thinking that because you are now in the suburbs, you are thinking that you are better than the other people. You are living there and you are stressed up financially. You are so much under depression and stress, and you lack life. You lack connection with nature. You are zombified by peer pressure. Instead of being yourself, you want to create a persona that you will put in social media and say, I'm living in Sandton, thinking that we are one with you, we adore such kind of life. Perish the thought. Get life. We are not with you. When you make those choices, don't wrap yourself on us and don't try to anoint us with those pictures and say, look at me, I'm better than you. That is a myth, and that is it shows childishness, right? So life is what you create. Happiness is what you create. Happiness comes from internal compass, being aligned with the cosmic world, being aligned with the spiritual moving life force, not buildings in Sandton. Are you crazy?
The Rural Renaissance. Building rural South Africa on our own terms is a bold manifesto that tears away the cliches and political lip service surrounding South Africa's villages. It exposes the charity myth and reveals the rural heartland as a sleeping economic giant, rich in culture, enterprise, and ingenuity. It calls out the councillors and political gatekeepers who treat development as their private property, crushing anything they can't control, and shows how to build prosperity entirely outside their grip. Using a data-driven approach, it defines 5 archetypes of rural communities, providing a clear framework for understanding the economic, social, and cultural dynamics shaping rural South Africa today. From turning subsistence farming into agro-processing powerhouses, to harnessing the December homecoming as a year-round bridge for skills and investment, to bypassing corrupt bottlenecks with direct-to-market systems, this is a blueprint for transformation on our own terms. It speaks to farmers, entrepreneurs, youth, and community builders who are done asking for permission. This is not a report. It is a hammer blow to rural stagnation and a rallying cry for a rural renaissance. The beating heart beyond the cities. Beyond the glittering skylines of Johannesburg and Cape Town, past the sprawling suburbs and industrial corridors, lies a South Africa rarely given its full due. The rural village, too often reduced to a category in a census or a tired cliché in political speeches, the rural village is not a monolith, not a singular image of dusty roads and scattered huts. It is an intricate mosaic, a living organism that encompasses a vast array of geographies, economies, and cultures, from the green, mist-cloaked hills of the Eastern Cape to the semi-arid plains of the Karoo, from Limpopo's fruit-laden valleys to KwaZulu-Natal's river-rich heartlands. The rural landscape defies uniformity. Here, life is measured not by the frenetic rush of city streets, but by rhythms older than asphalt. Seasonal harvests, communal gatherings, the passing of ancestral knowledge through story and song. It is home to roughly 20 million South Africans. Yet its reach is far greater, for even those who make their lives in the cities and industrial hubs carry the rural village in their bloodlines and in their weekend journeys. Home. Parents, uncles, aunts, cousins. These human threads bind urban and rural South Africa into one continuous fabric. The line between them is not a frontier, but a pulse. People flow back and forth, bringing ideas, money, and influence in one direction, and carrying traditions, values, and the grounding force of heritage in the other. This living interchange is one of South Africa's most underappreciated forces, and yet it is too often ignored, even by politicians who drape themselves in the language of rural love during campaigns, only to vanish once the ballot boxes are closed. In neglecting the rural heartland, they overlook not only a fifth of the population, but also one of the nation's deepest reservoirs of resilience, innovation, and untapped opportunity. Our purpose here is not to rehearse what the statistics say, nor to produce a polite documentary of village life. We aim to dig, as a prospector would, into the bedrock, searching not for gold or diamonds, but for the economic and social treasures lying dormant in the rural soil. We will look for the seeds of enterprise that can flourish where others see only distance and difficulty. we will uncover the ingenuity that already exists here, born not from policy but from necessity, and explore how it can be refined, scaled, and celebrated. To understand South Africa's future, one must not only look to the skylines, but also to the village horizon, where the sun still rises over unbroken fields, where ambition is carried in both calloused hands and in the dreams of the young, and where the promise of renewal is as real as the earth underfoot. This is not a sentimental journey. It is an expedition into possibility. Pillar 1. The rural economy as a growth engine, not a charity case. For far too long, rural South Africa has been cast in the role of a dependent, the poor cousin to the cities, existing only as a place that needs handouts, aid packages, or rescue from the outside. This is a damaging and false narrative. The rural economy is not a drain on the nation. It is a dormant engine capable of extraordinary output when given the right ignition. At its core, the rural village is already producing. It grows maize, sorghum, vegetables, and fruit. It rears cattle, goats, and poultry. It weaves baskets, crafts furniture, forges tools, and brews beverages. It has artisans, carpenters, healers, mechanics, and storytellers. Yet much of this productivity remains locked in a survival loop. Goods made for immediate consumption or local exchange, without reaching broader, higher value markets. The transformation we seek is simple in concept, but profound in impact. Move from subsistence to surplus. This means helping farmers not only feed their families, but produce enough to sell beyond the village, consistently and profitably. Shift from raw to refined. Instead of sending unprocessed crops to city buyers, develop small-scale agro-processing, plants in the villages themselves, turning tomatoes into bottled sauces, maize into packaged mealie meal, milk into cheese and yogurt. The leap from raw produce to finished goods multiplies income, creates jobs, and keeps value in the community. Build reliable supply chains. Too often, rural producers lose income because there is no dependable way to store, transport, or sell their goods at scale. Cold storage units, cooperative transport systems, and guaranteed offtake agreements can prevent waste and stabilize prices. When rural areas are treated as investment zones rather than welfare zones, they reveal their true capacity to generate wealth, create employment, and even feed the cities that once looked down on them. The truth is that every economically vibrant country has understood the same principle. Cities cannot thrive if their rural hinterlands are poor. In South Africa, the rural economy is not an afterthought. It is the foundation stone upon which sustainable national growth must be built. Pillar 2. Knowledge and skills transfer. Across the rural-urban bridge, South Africa's rural-urban migration is often misread as a one-way escape from the village to the city. In truth, it is a pendulum, a living bridge with traffic flowing in both directions, carrying more than just people. It carries memory, ambition, skill, and culture. Every December, this bridge comes alive in a way that is uniquely South African. It is not simply a holiday. It is a homecoming ritual, a mass cultural migration etched into the nation's DNA. The highways groan under the weight of buses, taxis, and bakkies piled high with goods and gifts. Workplaces in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban fall eerily quiet. And the villages? They light up. It's a season so powerful it's been immortalized in song. Master KG Finti Zanda Zakuzas Di Yaboya Limpopo. That refrain, "We're coming back," is not just a lyric. It's a declaration. It is the call of the soil, the pull of the homestead, the joy of reconnecting with one's roots. December is weddings under summer skies, initiation ceremonies, ancestral rituals, overflowing marketplaces, soccer tournaments on dusty fields, and the laughter of cousins reunited after a year apart. It is sheer culture, thick and unbroken, Within this seasonal heartbeat lies a treasure we've barely begun to harness. Every homecoming is a delivery of skills, resources, and new ideas from the city to the countryside. And just as importantly, a return journey carrying rural wisdom, community discipline, and low-cost ingenuity back to the cities. The tragedy is that this exchange is mostly accidental and unstructured. No deliberate systems exist to capture, multiply, and extend it beyond the festive season. The opportunity is clear. Formalize returnee entrepreneurship programs so city-earned capital and skills can seed rural enterprises. Institutionalize, reverse internships, sending urban youth to learn resourcefulness and innovation from rural entrepreneurs and farmers. Create permanent digital knowledge hubs that link rural communities to universities, industries, and technical mentors, keeping the bridge active all year, not just in December. The rural-urban bridge, when seen for what it truly is, becomes one of South Africa's greatest nation-building assets. It is both an economic artery and a cultural lifeline. And if we can harness the spirit of Dia Boya Limpopo not as a seasonal event, but as a year-round current, we will turn that bridge into a highway of renewal, where both city and village rise together. Hey, let's get this straight. We're not here to drown you in big words and act like we're the smartest ones in the room. We can come down to your level because it's actually our level too. We live here. We hustle here. We know what it takes to make things work when there's no money, no help, and no mercy from the system. And to the counselors and politicians who love to say our people every time there's a camera around, stop it. You're not God. The people don't belong to you. They belong to themselves. They have their own dreams, their own brains, and their own right to decide what's best for their communities. Your plans that you bring in from the city, cooked, up in boardrooms and stitched together for corrupt tenders, are not helping anyone. They're not made to save lives or create jobs. They're made to fatten pockets. Real change comes when communities create their own plans, run by them, owned by them, with no one holding the gate shut until a bribe is paid. So here we come. Not to own you, not to save you, but to make sure you have the tools and the space to save yourselves. Because that's the only kind of freedom that lasts. Pillar 3. Infrastructure and connectivity. As the great equalizer in South Africa's rural villages, distance is not the enemy. Disconnection is. The difference between a thriving rural hub and a struggling one is often not talent, not work ethic, not even natural resources. It is the presence or absence of infrastructure. A farmer can produce the sweetest mangoes in the district, but if the road to the nearest market is a cratered strip of gravel, those mangoes will rot in the crate. A seamstress can craft garments worthy of export, but without reliable courier services or internet access, her customer base never grows beyond the next village. A bright student can have the mind of a scientist, but without stable electricity and broadband, their schooling is at the mercy of power cuts and data costs. Infrastructure is not a luxury. It is the oxygen of opportunity. Roads, bridges, public transport, cold storage facilities, and market spaces give rural producers physical reach. Mobile networks, fiber internet, and renewable energy grids give them digital reach. Without these, the rural economy remains trapped in a small circle of survival, unable to scale. The rural-urban bridge we spoke of in Pillar 2 cannot exist without these arteries. When buses can run on time, when refrigerated trucks can reach the remotest farm, when fiber lines stretch into the valleys, the playing field shifts dramatically. Distance becomes an advantage. Remote villages can specialize in niche agricultural products, heritage crafts, or ecotourism experiences precisely because they are not in overcrowded markets. Youth see a future at home. When a young person can run an online business, study remotely, or work in a local factory with proper power and transport links, the village stops being a departure lounge and starts being a destination. Investment flows inward. No business wants to sink capital into an area it can't reach. The moment infrastructure is reliable, private investment follows. This is why infrastructure and connectivity must be approached as economic strategy, not as handouts or election promises. They are the great equalizer, the tools that allow a rural entrepreneur to compete with the suburban one, and a village student to access the same information as their urban peer. When we pave roads, string fiber lines, install solar microgrids, and build logistics hubs in rural South Africa, we are not just closing a development gap, we are opening a gateway for goods, ideas, and ambition to flow freely, both ways, across the nation's heartland. Pillar 4. Culture, heritage, and rural identity as economic assets in South Africa's rural villages. Culture is not something stored behind museum glass. It is lived daily. It is in the rhythm of drumbeats at a wedding, the call of a herder at dawn, the scent of bread baked on an open fire, the intricate beadwork patterns that speak a silent language of identity. These are not just beautiful traditions. They are economic gold waiting to be recognized, protected, and strategically developed. Too often, heritage is treated as quaint but economically irrelevant, a backdrop for folklore rather than a driver of livelihoods. This is a costly mistake. Around the world, nations have learned that authenticity is a commodity with immense value. People will travel thousands of kilometers, spend generously, and remain loyal customers for experiences and products that feel rooted, real, and unrepeatable anywhere else. South Africa's rural villages hold exactly that. Architecture and design that blends indigenous forms with colonial influences, telling layered stories through every wall and homestead. Oral traditions and performance arts, songs, dances, and storytelling that could be monetized through festivals, recordings, and cultural exchanges. Indigenous knowledge systems, from herbal medicine to water harvesting techniques, that have value in both local problem-solving and global markets. Harnessing culture as an economic asset requires a mindset shift. From preservation to participation, heritage sites, craft traditions, and rituals should not just be documented. They should be active spaces of production, performance, and trade. From exploitation to ownership, too many rural artisans lose control of their designs to middlemen, who market them under urban or foreign brands. Intellectual property laws, cooperatives, and fair trade systems must protect rural creators so they benefit directly. From seasonal events to year-round industries, cultural tourism should not be confined to December homecomings or occasional festivals. It can be sustained through curated tours, online craft marketplaces, and continuous partnerships with schools, corporates, and creative industries. When culture and heritage are valued not just emotionally, but economically, something profound happens. The young stop seeing tradition as old-fashioned and start seeing it as a career path. Visitors stop treating the village as a curiosity and start recognizing it as a center of creativity. And perhaps most importantly, communities stop waiting for outside rescue. They turn the stories, skills, and symbols they already own into the engines of their own prosperity. The rural village is not only South Africa's breadbasket, it is its soul. And in a world hungry for authenticity, the soul is worth more than gold. Pillar 5. Barriers and opportunities for future growth. The rural economy's greatest enemies are not drought, distance, or lack of ideas. They are gatekeepers. In too many villages, politicians and councillors have positioned themselves as self-appointed landlords of progress. Nothing moves without their blessing, and when development dares to happen outside their control or comprehension, they will crush it rather than let it flourish without their fingerprints. This political stranglehold is as old as the post-apartheid local governance structure. In theory, councillors exist to represent community needs. In practice, far too many have reinterpreted representation to mean ownership of opportunities, contracts, and the right to decide who eats and who starves. The result? Promising projects are delayed into irrelevance. Investors are chased away, and entrepreneurs are quietly sabotaged through withheld permits, inflated compliance demands, or whispered campaigns of mistrust. These barriers are not accidental. They are deliberate mechanisms of control, gatekeeping of land use, and development approvals to ensure nothing happens without political alignment or tribute, monopolizing community decision-making platforms so that dissenting voices are drowned out, and innovation is painted as disloyalty, weaponizing dependency, keeping rural communities reliant on councillor interventions rather than enabling independent growth. Yet even here, there are opportunities, because cracks in the wall are already showing. Many rural citizens, especially youth, are no longer content to wait for permission to dream. Mobile connectivity has made it harder to choke off ideas, and more rural entrepreneurs are learning to structure their businesses in ways that avoid political bottlenecks entirely. Partnerships with private investors, NGOs, faith-based organizations, and diaspora networks are creating parallel development streams that politicians can't easily derail. The way forward lies in bypassing political choke points through legally robust, community-owned cooperatives that operate outside the gift-giving cycle of local councillors, direct-to-market and direct-to-funder platforms that let rural producers sell and raise capital without political mediation, civic education and legal literacy, so communities know exactly what powers councillors do and don't have under the law, making intimidation less effective. Future growth will not come by begging gatekeepers to open the gate. It will come by building a new road around them, one paved with transparency, legal empowerment, and direct access to opportunity. When that happens, politicians will either be forced to adapt to a new, open playing field or be left behind entirely.